Written by Viva la Egla. I know most people hate spiders, and I know I'm weird for not being so bothered by them. I get that they're predators, they look spooky with all the legs and teeth and eyes, but to me they're so great. I'm that stereotypical person that points out how they aren't really harmful and they hunt down the other insects in your house that you don't want. If there's a spider in my house that I don't think is beneficial, I'll never kill it, but pick it up and put it outside. They just seem like little helpful friends to me. I live in a small town in Indiana, and it gets hot in the summer, and my apartment always ends up with the windows open. Aren't window AC units terrible? This leads to bugs galore. First, it's the ladybug infestation, then those tiny little gnats, then if I haven't been diligent in cleaning up every little thing, there's ants. And pretty soon I have the world's least interesting terrarium. But the nice thing is there are a plethora of little spider friends to help with all these pests. The kind that some Midwestern towns call daddy long legs, the ones with the spindly legs that hide in the corners of your room and end up in every corner of my apartment. It's like a buffet for them. About a year ago, I had one make a home in the windowsill next to my bed. She was the first I ever saw take up that position, and because it was in a place next to me that I saw every day, I thought I'd give her a name. What with her place being unique, I felt she was a rebel, so I named her Spartacus. I realized Spartacus is a male name, but I didn't know it was a female at the time. Pretty soon I was waking up saying good morning to her and congratulating her on her catch when I saw she had a meal. Sometimes I felt like we had some sort of bond when I would absentmindedly tell her my thoughts as I lay in bed at night. She seemed to stare at me like she knew I was addressing her. Well, one night I fell asleep with my head just right up next to the window. When I woke up, I felt something ever so slightly tickling my ear. I was groggy and didn't immediately itch at it, but as I woke up more, it felt like the tickle was moving further into my ear. Then my bleary eyes turned to the window and I saw Spartacus was gone. I'll be honest, I freaked out for a minute. An insect getting into your ear is pretty high up the don't let this fucking happen hierarchy. I ran to the bathroom and craned my head to get a look at my ear, but I couldn't see her, leading me to believe she was pretty deep. I had heard of people having this happen with a moth before, and the noise driving them so crazy that they used hydrogen peroxide to kill it, and have a doctor extract it. But at this point, I'm sure you realize I didn't want to kill my little spider friend. Actually, I felt kind of bad for her. My ear was definitely not going to be a good place to catch prey, and I guessed my increased heart rate was probably pretty irritating from inside my ear. I took a moment, relaxed, took some deep breaths. I reasoned that when food was obviously not coming, Spartacus would make her way out of my ear, and if I slept with my head by the window, then she'd naturally take up her old place. The tickle also went away fairly quickly and was instead replaced with tiny vibrations. They were rhythmic and actually added to my relaxation. It almost felt like a lullaby. I didn't take any action that day, and at night I slept as close to the window as I could get. I will say, even considering the situation, that was probably the most relaxing night of sleep I ever had. When I awoke, I still felt the vibration, so I knew my little passenger was still with me. When I went to the bathroom to get ready, though, I noticed a bit of what looked like web inside the hollow of my ear. It wasn't super noticeable without knowing what to look for. And outside of making me unable to hear in that ear, other than the vibrations, I didn't notice any consequences. So I let it be. I was fairly confident that no insects were going to go roaming up there, so I wasn't concerned it would extend her stay any longer. A few nights later, I was woken up by a whirring and fluttering in my ear. This was definitely not Spidicus and was intensely loud and nauseating, prompting me to rush to the bathroom again. It looked like a ladybug had gotten caught just at the entrance to my ear and was desperately trying to get away. I grabbed some tweezers, plucked it, and tossed it into the sink. I had to be in early the next day, so I went back to bed without thinking too much more about it. But as I lay down, I noticed Spidicus's vibrations had stopped. The world felt wrong. My lullaby stopped. I worried that I had maybe hurt her when pulling the ladybug out of her web, or if she was in desperate need of a meal. I instinctively touched my hand to my ear, and that's when a different vibration started. It's hard to describe, but it felt like a child's tantrum at the store. Somehow extremely high-pitched, coming in bursts, angry and unhappy. I felt terrible, both emotionally and physically, and darted back to the sink where I had thrown the ladybug. I picked it up again with the tweezers, the strange shrieking ringing in my ears, and put it back up to the webbing it had been trapped in previously. Immediately the vibration stopped, and instead I felt the tickle of Spidicus moving a little closer to the entrance. The ladybug thrashed again, but quickly I felt it get wrapped up and immobilized. My ear was silent again for a while, and I lay in bed, nervous. Finally, at maybe 3 a.m., I felt the happy, soothing vibrations come again. I let out a sigh of relief and slept like a baby. The next day, I wrestled with the need to take a shower. I had been avoiding it because I didn't want to disturb Spidicus so much, but now we were multiple days in, and I truly stank. I figured I would cover my ear with one hand and wash with the other, and hopefully the water wouldn't be so destructive to her nest. When I finally got up and turned on the shower, her vibrations immediately stopped. I knew this would be annoying to her, but I figured without any actual danger, her stopping vibrations would be about as bad as it would get. Moments later, when I entered the shower and the water started to hit me, I felt high-pitched vibrations that sounded like a shriek. I leapt out of the shower, half in concern over Spidicus and half in concern over my eardrum, and quickly dried the area around my head. Showering was clearly off the menu, but instead I ran a lukewarm bath and settled in for just using a hand towel on my face and head. Not ideal, but it seemed like a fair compromise. As the weeks went on, I started to understand her vibrations a little more. I felt almost like she was speaking to me, or that I could hear her emotions. She had some sort of sporadic annoyance when she hadn't gotten food in a while, and I would dutifully nab a bug to gift to her. I could tell that my increased heart rate really bothered her, so I tried to be courteous and avoid any activities that would force that on her. Loud noises bothered her too, so I tried to stay away from anything like that. I worked from home, so it wasn't all that difficult to cut out these accesses. My social life suffered a bit, but really I wouldn't say it was all that active to begin with, so no real harm done. There were times I could feel her humming in a way that sounded positive but not calm. When I would see something like a squirrel or a small bird, she had this vibration that seemed to energize me a bit. Like how you listen to harder music if you get yourself through a workout. It was a bit of an adrenaline rush. One time a bird landed on my windowsill, and when I saw it, the vibration seemed so strong in my ear that I just dove for the bird. I didn't know what I intended to do with it, or really what part of me wanted to grab it at all, but I missed and only ended up smacking the bird. I started taking relaxing walks in a park that's not far from my house. Spidicus never liked when I drove my car, so I would walk there, cutting through some yards so I wasn't around the loud streets. Usually it would be at night, and my way was frequently lit by fireflies. The park had a small pond, and she would always make the most soothing vibrations when I sat along the water's edge. I think it was mostly because there were plenty of bugs there, and I would put a few up into her web over the course of a walk. But I like to think she was just admiring the scenery as much as I was. But even if that wasn't the case, I wanted to make sure she had access to a larger variety of food, and that her life didn't get boring just sitting at home with me. The walk started to become a bit of an issue, though. I would take the same route each time, and at some point I think she remembered when the walk was coming to an end. At that point, she began vibrating in a way I'm sure was just disappointment and longing to stay. But it also had the effect of destabilizing my balance. Whatever her vibrations were doing to my inner ear made it very difficult to walk forward. And depending on the time, sometimes I just felt like I was spinning despite lying on the grass. On more than one occasion, I threw up, which made me glad I had come at night. My solution at first was to change my walk pattern, but she figured this out fairly quick. She must have had some knowledge of the direction we were heading and the direction of home, because she seemed to be able to accurately predict when I tried to steer us back that way. However, one day I had fed her a small insect and started heading home as she was working on it, distracting her with her treat. I got almost halfway back home when she finished and seemed to realize it, and the last bit of that walk was chaos. I could tell she was upset at me for tricking her, but realistically, what could I do? I had to get home. It did make me feel like a rather impolite host. In the end, what worked was grabbing large quantities of bugs and inundating her with them on the return trip. I would get a handful, which was quite a lot depending on which kind of bug I was able to get, and feed them to her like popcorn out of my hand, usually 2 to 3 at a time. It seemed to satisfy her enough, and the park trips could continue without issue. The only part of our relationship that seemed to give me any pause happened about 8 months into Spidicus's residence. I had decided to shave with a razor for the first time in what must have been multiple years. And while I had been shaving my sideburn on the side that housed Spidicus, she had a momentary change in her vibration that startled me a minute. I slid the blade a little to the side because of this and ended up nicking myself. I turned and looked at it in the mirror. A little red line, not much bigger than a paper cut, and a small bead of blood that rose up at the edge. While I was looking at it, frustrated with myself for deciding to shave at all considering how bad I was at it, I saw a thin, very long leg start to slowly but fluidly stretch out of my ear. It drifted down to the droplet of blood, bending to touch it, then, just as fluidly, brought the leg back into my ear. I never felt the movement from within, but the leg had only shown 3 joints from what I could tell. That meant that only half the leg had been out. I thought about how large Spidicus must be then. I cringed. She must be so uncomfortable. The poor thing. Our situation continued uncomfortably for a while longer, and it's only recently that it seems to be drawing to a close. About 10 days ago, I felt many more vibrations began to start inside my ear. At first, I thought there may be a problem with Spidicus, but after having a few days with the vibrations, I started to notice that they each felt a little like Spidicus, while also being on top of the vibration Spidicus herself was making. I don't know when she would have laid eggs, but I also wasn't aware of much of anything that was going on inside her living space. The vibrations have built recently, and while the chorus of little ones has become stronger, I feel as though Spidicus herself has done it less. And when she does join them, they're soft, like she doesn't have the strength for more. Soon, I think, I'll be without her. But the life of a spider is only so long, and she has definitely been good to me. And it's quite fortunate for me, if I do say so myself, that soon I will be blessed with so many more little pest control friends.